Here we have the brain. This part is the cerebrum. The little downward folds, the deep down folds, are called sulcus. The up folds are called gyrus. A fissure is a deep down fold, and there's two fissures that you need to remember. One being the longitudinal fissure, which just divides the two cerebral hemispheres, and the transverse fissure, which is the deep down fold between the cerebrum and the cerebellum. So this is the cerebellum, and this is the cerebrum. So whatever's dividing the cerebellum from the cerebrum would be considered the transverse fissure. And now let's open up the brain and look at the mid-sagittal section. So let's open this guy up. Alright, now you are looking at the right lobe of the brain. The left lobe's over here. So, alright, so all this is still cerebrum, all that. But what you need to know is that there's a dicephalon, and the dicephalon contains the thalamus, intermediate mass, and the hypothalamus. So the dicephalon contains the thalamus, which is this area right here. It's this little guy right here. Inside of the thalamus, in the very middle, would be the intermediate mass. The hypothalamus would be this whole area right here. And under the hypothalamus, you'll find a bunch of different things. Like this yellow thing right here would actually be part of the optic nerve. I'm pointing at the optic chiasma. There's the optic nerve. But right here, which is at the end of the hypothalamus, you'll find an infundibulum. The infundibulum is like a cord that holds the pituitary gland. You can't see the pituitary gland in this specific model, but the infundibulum would be right here. So a pituitary gland would be, imaginary, it would be right there. Like right there, somewhere. And if you go up and you look outside of the dicephalon, you'll see a corpus callosum. This upper thing is the first thing you'll look at. That's the highest up, and that's the corpus callosum. Underneath the corpus callosum, inside of a little space, this little space right here, it is called septum pellucidum. Septum pellucidum. It's a vertical partition running from corpus callosum to the fornix. This right here is what we would call the fornix. So between the fornix and the corpus callosum is the septum pellucidum. Septum pellucidum. And after the septum pellucidum is the fornix, which is this right here. Underneath the fornix, you will find a choroid plexus, which is right here. The choroid plexus is kind of above the thalamus. The thalamus would be considered where the third ventricle is. The third ventricle is right in between the left and the right thalamus. So if we had the left brain next to here and we put something right in between, That would be the third ventricle. There's such thing as lateral ventricles too. There's a left and a right lateral ventricle. And the lateral ventricle is this end right here. So right here at the very end of septum pellucidum, you would find the lateral ventricle. Inside of this thing, you will find the anterior commissure. It's this little dot right here. It's called the anterior commissure because it's pretty anterior, like since this is the back and this is the front. So here's the anterior commissure. If you go down kind of close to the hypothalamus, next to the infundibulum and the optic nerve and the pituitary gland, you would find the mammary gland. It's this little bump right here, this little white bump. And if we go over here, this is the choroid plexus underneath the fornix, which is underneath septum lucidium, which is underneath corpus callosum. So underneath the choroid plexus, remember the choroid plexus is composed of capillaries, which are little blood vessels. Underneath that, you will find the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is this little red thing right here. It is right above the corpora quadrigema. The corpora quadrigema is considered the midbrain, and it is composed of a superior colliculus and an inferior colliculus. Or you can also call them colliculi. So inferior colliculi, superior colliculi. Next to the midbrain, you will find a cerebral aqueduct. It's this little thing right here, little indent. As you go down the cerebral aqueduct, you will find pons, and you'll find the cerebellum on this side. Pons and the cerebellum. Between pons and the cerebellum, right in the cerebral aqueduct, you will find the fourth ventricle. It's this little hole right, it's this little hole right here. Remember that the brainstem is composed of pons, the midbrain, which it has the superior and inferior colliculi. So the brainstem has pons, midbrain, and medulla oblongata. Medulla oblongata is between the spinal cord, which is right here, and pons. So medulla oblongata would be right here. Now I'm going to put the brains, the two sides of the brains together so I can show you the bottom of the brain, different stuff. There's different nerves to see. And we'll want to take apart these little lobes right here so you can have a better view of the different nerves on the brainstem. So now we switched views. I took off the front part of the brain, or the back part of the brain. This is the back part, and this is the front part of the brain. And underneath, this is the bottom of the brain too, because it's next to the brain stem. So if we look at the front, we will see olfactory nerves. These are called olfactory nerves or olfactory tracts. And at the very tips, it's called the olfactory bulb. As you go down, you'll hit these two things that kind of make an X almost. And these are what you would call the optic nerve. Right in the middle of the optic nerve, right there, that's the optic chiasma. Right here and right here are mammillary glands. Remember the mammillary gland? How I said it was right by the hypothalamus? And right here in the middle between the mammillary glands and the optic nerve, you will find the infundibulum. Remember, the infundibulum is what holds the pituitary gland. So the middle is the infundibulum. The mammillary glands are on the side, and the optic nerves are on the side. So as we're going down the brainstem, what you will find on the sides right here are called punducles. And these punducles have a nerve called the oculomotor nerve. And the oculomotor nerves are located right here and right there. So these two yellow things, right here and right here. And after the punducles, we have pons. And on pons, we have upper nerves and lower nerves. The upper nerves, which are on this side and this side, are called trigeminal nerves. And these trigeminal nerves are located hold on, sorry, I need to recheck my facts. Okay, so these are trigeminal nerves, and they're kind of up here on the sides of pons, as you can see. And then at the bottom of pons, right next to the spinal cord, you find another nerve on pons called the abducens nerve. Remember, the upper nerve is trigeminal nerve. The bottom one is abducens nerve. The trigeminal nerve consists of two types of nerves, and those are a motor root and a sensory root. So motor and sensory nerves right here. So abducens is right here on pons, just before the spinal cord. And right here on the spinal cord, you'll find pyramids. And you find these nerves that are all over the spinal cord. Right here, right here, right here, and right there. And those are called vagus nerves. And right in between the vagus nerves, you'll find pyramids. And I believe that's it.